Out of my house, Marilyn screamed, pointing toward the front door as if she had been waiting years to say it. Behind her, 20 guests stood beneath a gold banner that read, "Congratulations, CEO Nathan." My husband held a champagne glass in one hand and a folder he expected me to sign in the other. I set my purse beside the untouched cake. "Marilyn," I said, "this house belongs to the company, and Nathan stopped being acting CEO at 4:18 this afternoon. My name is Elena Brooks. I was 37, the co-founder, chief financial officer, and board chair of Harbor Ridge Corporate Housing in Raleigh. Nathan was my husband of 8 years, and until that afternoon, our acting CEO. I had built Harbor Ridge before I met him, starting with 3 furnished apartments and a borrowed cargo van. By the time we married, the company managed executive housing in 4 cities. Nathan joined as sales director, and he was genuinely good at it. He could remember a client's child's name after one meeting and make a tense negotiation feel like lunch with an old friend. I handled the money, contracts, and systems. He became the public face. Because I hated attention and loved him, I let people confuse visibility with ownership. His mother turned that confusion into a belief system. What Nathan and Marilyn did not understand was that the board vote was only one part of the problem. Inside the folder Nathan wanted me to sign was proof that he had been planning to take far more than a job title. Marilyn had always measured people by how impressive they looked from across a room. Her late husband had left debts, not savings, and she was terrified of being seen as someone who had fallen behind. Nathan's success became her shield. Every promotion gave her another story to tell her friends. At our company's 5th anniversary dinner, she introduced me to a group of investors as Nathan's wife, who helps with the receipts. I smiled and said, "I'm the CFO and one of the founders." Marilyn laughed as if I had made a joke. "Well, every husband needs someone organized behind him." Nathan heard her. He squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "She's proud. Let her have her moment." That sentence became the excuse for almost everything. 2 years later, our longtime CEO announced his retirement. The board named Nathan acting CEO for 90 days while we evaluated permanent candidates. It was a real responsibility, but it was not a promotion. The resolution was clear: temporary appointment, limited authority, final decision subject to a board vote. Nathan told his mother he had become CEO before the ink was dry. Marilyn immediately began calling me the finance person. At Thanksgiving, she raised a glass to my son, the man who built Harbor Ridge. I had personally guaranteed the company's first $180,000 credit line and worked unpaid for 14 months, but I still cleared the plates while Nathan accepted congratulations. I was angry, but I was also embarrassed by my anger. Nathan had spent years telling me he felt like a supporting character in the company I created. I thought giving him more space would make our marriage feel equal. Instead, my silence taught both of them that my work could be erased without consequence. The house at the center of the fight was called Ashford House. Harbor Ridge had purchased it for $1.18 million as an executive residence and client event property. It had 6 bedrooms, a conference room, and a separate entrance for catered events. When a pipe burst in Marilyn's condominium, we offered her Ashford House for 60 days while repairs were completed. The company's attorney drafted a temporary occupancy license. No rent, no ownership, no promise of permanent use. 10 months later, Marilyn was still there. She replaced company artwork with family portraits. She moved our locked supply cabinet into the garage. She told staff members to call before entering, even when they were preparing the property for clients. Then, an invoice for $8,940 crossed my desk for custom drapes in her bedroom. I asked Nathan why the company was paying for them. "It's temporary," he said. The old curtains were embarrassing. "For whom?" He stared at me for a second. "Can you not turn everything into a power struggle?" I rejected the invoice. A week later, it was resubmitted under a different vendor code and approved through Nathan's acting CEO account. I should have confronted him then. Instead, I told myself I would deal with it after the permanent CEO vote. I was protecting the board process, the company's reputation, and, if I am honest, my marriage. Marilyn became bolder. She hosted a 70-person birthday party at Ashford House without booking it through Harbor Ridge. A corporate client had to be moved to a hotel because the cleaning crew could not reset the property in time. When I told her that could never happen again, she folded her arms. Nathan said this will be mine soon. I looked at him. He rubbed the back of his neck and said, I told her we'd discuss long-term options. Marilyn smiled. Once he's officially CEO, he can make decisions without asking permission. I answered, a CEO still answers to a board. She waved one hand toward the kitchen. That's paperwork. Nathan runs the company. 3 weeks later, she removed me from a family group chat after I refused to approve a $6,200 outdoor kitchen. Her final message before blocking me was, some women cannot stand watching their husbands succeed. Nathan asked me to apologize, not because I had done anything wrong, because, he said, his mother was under stress. The real betrayal surfaced on the last business day of the quarter. Our accounts payable manager, Tessa, asked why $41,860 in Ashford House renovations had been divided among 7 invoices. Each invoice was below the amount that required a second approval. I opened the approval history. Nathan had authorized every one of them. The descriptions were vague. Guest experience improvements, property staging, executive amenities. The attached photographs showed Marilyn's new bathroom tile, built-in wardrobes, and a monogrammed stone sign beside the driveway. I called our corporate attorney, Nina Patel, expecting a difficult conversation about reimbursement. Nina became quiet. Did you approve the proposed transfer? She asked. What transfer? 10 minutes later, an email appeared in my inbox. Nathan had asked Nina to prepare documents transferring Ashford House to MB Family Holdings, an LLC formed 6 days earlier. The members were Nathan and Marilyn. The proposed price was $10. He had written, Elna supports this as part of my CEO compensation package. The board approval is effectively secured. Nina had not prepared the deed. She had asked him for the board resolution and my written consent. When he failed to provide either, she contacted me. That should have been the worst thing I found. It wasn't. Attached to Nathan's request was a draft memo stating that I intended to step down as board chair for ongoing health reasons and grant him voting authority over my shares during my recovery. I was not ill. He had taken an old email from a 2-week medical leave and built a fictional plan around it. The memo was unsigned and legally useless, but its purpose was obvious. He wanted the board to believe I was withdrawing while he secured the title, the house, and control over decisions tied to my 58% ownership. For the first time, I stopped asking myself how to save the marriage and started asking how much damage he could do if I kept protecting him. I did not call Nathan. I saved the invoices, the approval logs, the LLC filing, and every email Nina forwarded. Then I contacted outside counsel, so no one could claim I had used company lawyers for a personal fight. The next morning, our audit committee met. Tessa explained how the invoices had been split. Nina confirmed that Nathan had misrepresented my consent. Our independent director reviewed the acting CEO resolution and pointed to the clause allowing immediate removal for misuse of authority or material dishonesty. I recused myself from the discussion and vote because Nathan was my husband. The 3 independent directors voted unanimously. The board removed him as acting CEO, suspended his system access, and appointed our operations chief, Lena Ortiz, as interim CEO while the audit continued. The resolution became effective at 4:18 p.m. Nathan received it by company email and certified courier. He did not respond. He was already at Ashford House preparing the celebration Marilyn had organized for his official appointment. He still believed the board would confirm him the following week. He also believed I would sign whatever he placed in front of me rather than embarrass him publicly. That had always been his safest assumption. I arrived at 7. Gold balloons lined the staircase. Marilyn wore a silver dress and greeted guests beside a framed photograph of Nathan with the words, Our CEO, printed underneath. 2 Harbor Ridge department heads were there, along with relatives, neighbors, and Nina, whom Nathan had invited because he expected her to bring the property transfer documents. At dinner, Marilyn gave a speech about sacrifice. I always knew Nathan was meant to lead, she said. Some people manage details. Leaders create legacies. Her eyes settled on me when she said, details. Nathan stood and thanked everyone. Then he lifted a folder. One final family matter, he said. Elena and I are formalizing Mom's ownership of Ashford House. It's part of the compensation arrangement the board will approve. Nina put down her water glass. Nathan slid the folder toward me. On top was a consent form stating that I supported the transfer and waived any objection as a shareholder. I did not touch the pen. I'm not signing this. His smile held for another second. We discussed it. No, you told your attorney that we discussed it. Marilyn leaned forward. Do not ruin this night because you're jealous. This property belongs to Harbor Ridge. My son is the CEO of Harbor Ridge, she snapped. He can give his mother a house. Nathan lowered his voice. Elena, sign the form. We'll talk at home. I looked at him and finally understood that he was not confused. He was counting on pressure. The guests, the banner, his mother's speech, the public celebration, none of it was accidental. He had created a room where refusing him would make me look cruel. When I pushed the folder back, Marilyn stood so quickly that her chair struck the wall. Get out of my house! A few guests looked toward the floor. My sister-in-law lowered her phone. Nathan did not defend me. He simply waited, certain I would retreat as I always had. I set the board resolution beside his champagne glass. This is not your house, Marilyn. It is a corporate asset. Your temporary license expired 8 months ago. Nathan glanced at the first page. His expression tightened. I continued. And your son is not CEO. He was acting CEO under a temporary board appointment. At 4:18 this afternoon, the board removed him. Marilyn looked at Nina. Tell her she can't do that. Nina answered carefully. The board acted under the terms of the appointment. I'm here as company counsel, not as anyone's family attorney. Nathan flipped to the signature page. You voted against me? I did not vote. The 3 independent directors removed you unanimously. He shoved the paper away. This is because of a few renovation bills? I opened the second folder. It is because you split $41,860 in personal expenses to avoid review. It is because you formed an LLC with your mother and tried to acquire a $1.18 million company property for $10. And it is because you told counsel I was stepping down and giving you control of my shares. His uncle stopped chewing. One department head quietly removed the CEO badge Nathan had given him as a joke. Marilyn pointed at me. You're humiliating him. No, I said. I'm correcting a story he used to humiliate me. Nathan insisted the transfer was only an idea. Nina reminded him that she had his written request, the LLC filing, and the false statement about my approval. Then she handed Marilyn a notice from the company's property manager. It did not throw her onto the street that night. It ended her unauthorized use of the property and gave her 30 days to leave, subject to the formal process required by local law. Marilyn stared at the notice as if it were written in another language. You would evict your own mother? She is your mother, I told Nathan. And you promised her property that was never yours. The celebration ended without anyone cutting the cake. Nathan came home after midnight and said I had destroyed him to prove I was more powerful. I told him power was not the issue. Trust was. The audit took 6 weeks. It confirmed the renovation charges and several smaller personal expenses. But no money had left the company for the property transfer because Nina had stopped it. The board terminated Nathan for cause. Through a settlement reviewed by separate attorneys, he agreed to repay the $41,860 over 8 months and not contest the findings publicly. Marilyn moved out on the 28th day. She did not apologize. She told relatives I had stolen her retirement home, even though she had never owned 1 inch of it. A few believed her. Most stopped repeating the story after seeing the LLC filing and the company notice. Nathan and I separated. During counseling, he admitted that being married to the founder made him feel small, and that his mother's admiration felt like proof that he mattered. I understood the insecurity. I could not excuse the deception it produced. Our divorce was finalized 11 months later. At Harbor Ridge, We changed the approval system so no executive could authorize expenses tied to a family member or company residence. Lena became permanent CEO after a full search. I remained CFO and board chair, but I stopped hiding my role to make other people comfortable. Ashford House returned to its intended use. The monogrammed stone sign came down. The first event we hosted there afterward was a leadership retreat, and for once, I did not stand near the back while someone else described the company I had built. For years, I believed love meant protecting Nathan from feeling overshadowed. All I really protected him from was accountability. Marilyn's order to leave did me a favor. It showed me that I had spent too long asking permission to stand inside my own life. She told me to get out of her house. I stopped letting her family live inside my decisions.